morning hours, March 3rd, there was been a report of a go fast. Our aviation detachment, Hitron out of Jacksonville, Florida, spotted a 35-foot vessel, 3 outboard engines, and they relayed the information back to our cutter. We pursued them, boarded the vessel, and ended up detaining 4 crew members and seizing 54 bales of contraband, which tested to be positive.
This is a terrifying video of cartel gunmen from the CJNG and the Sinaloa cartel announcing their new alliance to wage war against Trump. Yes, you heard that right. These 2 most dangerous cartels in the world, who have been arch enemies for years, have just come together for the first time in history because they now share a common enemy, Trump. Why? Because under Trump's leadership, the cartels are bleeding. Record-breaking military operations have smashed their networks, intercepted their submarines, and sunk their stealth boats loaded with millions worth of drugs. In one mission alone, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter James seized over $510 million worth of narcotics in just 4 months. That's a financial bath for the cartels. So now, the cartels have had enough and they're regrouping to fight back with everything they've got. But the problem is, they won't be facing only Trump and the United States now, because over 70 other countries have joined the fight. Shocking, right? But Trump's response is even more shocking. And here is another twist. Some experts believe that this alliance may not only be about Trump. They are pointing to a much bigger power play here. Let's break it all down for you. The billion-dollar Naval Blitz that provoked the cartel. One of the major reasons the cartels are panicking and forming new pacts is the United States Navy and Coast Guard, specifically a legendary mission in early 2025 that shook the cartels to their core. This mission was led by a single U.S. Coast Guard ship called the cutter James. Don't let the name fool you, because this is not another patrol boat. This thing is like a floating fortress at 418 feet long and a crew of 150 members. In just 112 days, this ship delivered one of the most financially devastating hits ever recorded against cartel operations at sea. Let's break down how it happened. It all started on January 5th, 2025, when cutter James launched a drone off the coast of Ecuador. This wasn't your typical drone. It was a special maritime surveillance drone that could fly non-stop for 18 hours. It is equipped with ultra-sharp cameras that can read the name of a boat from miles away. So, on that particular day, the drone spotted a suspicious vessel high above the sea and quietly tracked it until the boarding team moved in. They captured 3 smugglers and seized over 2,250 pounds of coke. But that was just the beginning. The very next day, January 6th, the mission escalated. Surveillance teams spotted 3 go-fast boats traveling together. That was very unusual because smugglers never travel in groups for obvious reasons. But this time, maybe they thought strength in numbers would help, but it didn't. The cutter James coordinated a high-risk intercept using helicopters, snipers, and small fast boats. All 3 cartel vessels were stopped. Authorities recovered 13,960 pounds of coke and arrested 9 suspects. Then came January 7th. This time, the smugglers tried a different tactic. They used a low-profile vessel designed to sit just inches above the water, almost invisible to radar. But the U.S. team was ready. Again, the helicopter crew moved in, and with expert precision, they shot out the engines. Another 8,240 pounds of coke were taken off the water. Then came another dramatic moment on January 18th. Smugglers tried to dump their cargo into the sea as U.S. boats closed in, but the cutter James crew chased them down while recovery teams dove into the water to pull floating packages out of the ocean. That day alone, they saved nearly 6,000 pounds of coke from reaching the streets. Over the course of this mission, the cutter James and its support teams intercepted over 48,000 pounds of narcotics in less than 4 months. That's enough to supply a mid-sized American city for an entire year. The street value was around $510 million, and that was just one ship. The U.S. Navy later also joined in, with warships like the USS Minneapolis-St. Paul and USS St. Louis, conducting their own busts in the Caribbean. Every one of these operations added more pressure on the cartels, especially the Sinaloa cartel and CJNG, who were hit the hardest. But what's even more important than the drugs is the intelligence they gathered. Every intercepted boat gave up secrets like maps of smuggling routes, encrypted communications, satellite phones, and even lists of cartel contacts. That intel is now being used to plan the next wave of military operations. And all of this, the seizures, the captures, the intelligence, were just one part of a much larger campaign. Behind these missions is a global force called JIATF South, or Joint Interagency Task Force South. Their command center is based in Key West, Florida, and they're the brains behind these crackdowns. They coordinate real-time missions across multiple countries. They share satellite data, radar, and surveillance feeds to track cartel boats before they even leave the shores. In fact, their operation is so advanced that it now involves over 60 countries working together to stop these shipments before they reach the US. So, when cartels suddenly announce alliances, threaten retaliation, or unite against Trump, this is part of the reason. The sea isn't safe for them anymore, not with drones overhead, warships waiting, and entire nations working together to destroy their supply lines. The global naval war against the cartels. Now, while Trump and the United States have become direct targets of the cartels, the truth is that the cartels have many other countries to worry about as well. Back in 2012, the US launched a major international operation called Operation Martillo. Martillo means hammer in Spanish, and that name wasn't chosen by accident.
USS Thatch arrived January 20th to the 4th Fleet Area of Responsibility for a scheduled 6-month deployment to conduct Operation Martillo.
This was the start of a multinational naval campaign aimed at breaking the drug cartel's grip on the waters between South America, Central America, and the United States. In the beginning, 14 countries joined the effort, including the US, the UK, France, Spain, Colombia, Guatemala, and Honduras. Over time, that number grew. They shared intelligence, patrolled shipping lanes, and tracked cartel vessels in real time. In just the first year, Operation Martillo seized over 100 tons of coke, arrested hundreds of smugglers, and intercepted dozens of boats loaded with drugs.
Early morning hours, March 3rd, there was been a report of a go-fast. Our aviation detachment, Hitron out of Jacksonville, Florida, spotted a 35-foot vessel, 3 outboard engines, and they relayed the information back to our cutter. We pursued them, boarded the vessel, and ended up detaining 4 crew members and seizing 54 bales of contraband, which tested to be positive cocaine.
But the cartels didn't back down. They adapted. They started using faster boats, low-profile vessels, and even submarines, so the US and its allies stepped up their game too. By late 2024, a separate operation called Operation Orion was launched. This turned out to be a global crackdown, with a record-breaking 62 countries joining in what became the largest maritime drug war in history. Military ships, coast guards, helicopters, and drones patrolled the waters day and night. They watched every route, every boat, every suspicious movement. When smugglers changed their course, they'd run right into another country's patrol. If they tried to dump the cargo, drones spotted the drop points. If they ran, helicopters chased them down, and snipers disabled their engines. And the numbers? They were historic. In a matter of weeks, this international task force seized over 225 tons of coke, thousands of tons of marijuana, and shut down a drug pipeline worth over $8.5 billion on the street. But that wasn't the only goal. Like Operation Martillo, each bust gave the US something even more valuable than drugs: intelligence, names of cartel members, maps of routes, patterns of movement. All of that information was fed back into the system, helping them plan the next wave of strikes. This was more than just a war on drugs. It was a strategic chess game. And for the first time in years, the US and its partners had the upper hand. The evolution of Narco Navy. While the United States and its partners are stepping up their game, the cartels are not just sitting back and taking the hits. They're adapting very fast. Over the past 2 decades, cartels have built what experts now call the Narco Navy. This is a fleet of drug smuggling vessels so advanced it rivals the capabilities of small national navies. The most astonishing part of this fleet is the Narco submarines, which are hand-built by criminal engineers in hidden workshops deep in the Colombian jungle. The first versions of these subs appeared in the 1980s. Back then, they were little more than tubes dragged behind boats. But over time, the designs became more advanced. By the 1990s, cartels were building self-powered submarines. But now, these narco subs are serious machines. Made from fiberglass and wood, they're usually around 80 feet long, can travel up to 2,500 miles without refueling, and carry as much as 10 tons of coke worth hundreds of millions of dollars. These subs travel just beneath the ocean's surface, making them almost invisible to radar. Some even have lead lining to hide their heat signatures from thermal imaging. They also come with a dangerous self-destruct feature called flooding valves. If the crew senses law enforcement nearby, they open it and the whole sub sinks instantly, taking the drugs down to the ocean floor. Recovery in this case is nearly impossible. During the Operation Orion in 2024, one narco sub was caught after it had traveled over 10,000 miles, heading from South America to Australia. That one vessel proved something terrifying. Cartels now have long-range smuggling capability across entire oceans, but submarines aren't their only tool. As we mentioned earlier, the cartels also use go-fast boats. These are small, 30-foot vessels with 3 or 4 powerful engines, which give them top speeds of over 80 miles per hour. That's faster than most law enforcement ships can chase. They're often painted ocean blue to blend in. They carry a minimal crew, just enough to run the boat, so they can load them up with as much fuel and coke as possible. With extra fuel tanks, they can go 500 miles non-stop. This is perfect for runs from Colombia to places like Jamaica, the Bahamas, or Florida. When speed alone isn't enough, some cartels switch to staying hidden. They use low-profile vessels like this, designed to ride just inches above the waterline. They look like floating panels and are nearly invisible to both radar and aircraft. These can carry several tons of drugs while staying hidden in plain sight. Some even combine both speed and staying hidden. These hybrid boats can hit 30 miles per hour while staying low and hard to detect. To make things even harder, cartels disguise these smuggling vessels as fishing boats while they stash drugs in hidden compartments under the deck to deceive the authorities. And it's working for them, at least sometimes. For every one boat or sub the US captures, intelligence experts estimate that about 3 or 4 got away. That's the scale of this problem. Cartels are now running high-tech sea operations, like military logistics teams. They are no longer a bunch of gang members smuggling dope in backpacks. Some of these narco vessels cost up to $2 million each, and they're always ready to dump them at any given time. Cartels in other markets. As it becomes increasingly difficult to smuggle drugs, the cartels are now exploring other markets in both the legal and illegal economy. Let's start with one of the most surprising examples: avocados. Yes, avocados. In late 2024, a violent turf war broke out in Michoacán, one of Mexico's top avocado-producing states. Violence erupted after a group called the United Cartels went head-to-head with the CJNG for control of the avocado trade in the region.
The high demand for avocados attracted the cartels. Beyond their typical activities of drug smuggling and human trafficking, they stepped into the lucrative avocado industry, eventually turning it violent. But there's a limit to everything. The farmers have gotten tired of cartel repression and environmental degradation. Many have formed vigilante groups and picked up weapons. They have also launched armed campaigns against these drug cartels.
But why would a cartel with the reputation of the CJNG fight over mere avocados? Well, the reason is that green gold, as they call it, is worth billions, and the cartels realized that controlling the avocado trade meant controlling legitimate money. But instead of going through due process to acquire their own lands and do business like everyone else, the cartels resorted to stealing, extortion, intimidation, and all sorts of violence.
In Michoacán, Mexico's avocado heartland, gangs are hijacking the industry, extorting and kidnapping producers, stealing trucks with their crops.
They started by asking me for more money per hectare. They came to the farm and said, "Who's the boss? We want you to contribute." That was 8 months ago. Some guys grabbed me and kidnapped me in their truck. They beat me and broke my head open. I told them to stop hitting me, that I would get more money together.
Things got so bad one time that the cartels threatened an inspector of the U.S. Department of Agriculture stationed in Michoacan.
When these inspectors are threatened by organized crime, the United States immediately upped the ante and said, you got to do something about organized crime because our inspectors must do their job.
But it's not just avocados. Cartels are also making money from limes, fuel theft, and even legal oil shipments. In Tamaulipas, the CJNG was caught tapping into pipelines owned by Pemex, Mexico's national oil company.
CJNG and the Gulf Cartel are now directly involved in stealing crude oil from Mexico's state-owned Pemex. That crude oil is then smuggled across the Texas border and sold on the black market, a scheme so large that the U.S. Treasury recently sanctioned 26 entities in connection to it.
After the scheme was busted, the U.S. government sanctioned 26 entities, including a cartel leader known as Primito, for their roles, especially in the financial aspect of this operation. The cartels would usually take control of a local industry, like farming or transportation, by forcing business owners to cooperate. They would then launder their money through these businesses, blending dirty profits with clean ones. Sometimes, the cartels also set up their own fake businesses that look like normal import-export companies from the outside. The result is that the cartels end up operating legitimate companies that export goods to the US. Sometimes, they even work with American corporations that don't know what's really going on. And that's what makes this war so complicated. Because when the cartels start running legal businesses, when their avocados end up in your supermarket, or their oil ends up in your gas tank, then everything gets blurry.
The DEA says that those monies made by those crimes makes it even harder for cartels to be dismantled and makes them more resilient while also protecting their core drug operation.
This is the new face of organized crime. The lines between legal and illegal have become so thin, it's often impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. And that's exactly why President Trump is still calling for military actions against the cartels inside Mexico. Because apparently, traditional law enforcement alone is no longer enough to deal with what these cartels have become with their smart innovations and alliances. The Sinaloa Cartel Civil War. Now, while we believe that the CJNG and the Sinaloa Cartel have formed an alliance to fight against external aggression from the United States and its partner countries, there's another major reason why this alliance happened when it did. For years, the Sinaloa Cartel was the most powerful drug cartel in Mexico. It was run by the infamous Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. But after he was arrested and later extradited to the United States, the cartel split into two rival groups. One group was led by Ismael El Mayo Zambada, El Chapo's longtime partner. The other was taken over by El Chapo's sons, Ivan Archivaldo Guzman, Jesus Alfredo Guzman, Ovidio Guzman, and Joaquin Guzman Lopez. These four are known as Los Chapitos. For a while, both factions operated under the Sinaloa umbrella, but everything changed in 2024. It all started when one of El Chapo's sons, Guzman Lopez, was accused of selling out El Mayo Zambada to U.S. authorities. El Mayo's son, known as El Mayito Flaco, believed that Los Chapitos had helped the U.S. authorities capture his father. This betrayal tore the Sinaloa cartel apart, and by late August 2024, a full-blown civil war had broken out.
Since it started a week and a half ago, it's left around 50 dead, and scenes like this one across Culiacan and the villages surrounding it.
More than 100 people are dead or missing in Mexico's western Sinaloa state since rival factions of the Sinaloa cartel began clashing on September the 9th, with the gruesome violence showing no signs of stopping.
The Los Chapitos were on the losing side of this war. They were losing fighters, territories, and even some of their allies started switching sides. As their power crumbled, rumors began to spread that Los Chapitos were reaching out to CJNG for help. Now, everyone knows the CJNG is one of the most violent and aggressive cartels in the world, and they have been fighting for control of Mexico for over a decade. They wanted more access to the Pacific Coast and Sonora, a border state between Arizona and New Mexico. So, when Los Chapitos allegedly came calling, the CJNG saw an opportunity. They could help the Chapitos survive and, in return, get control of key drug routes right to the US border. And then it happened. The cartel released this video on May 17, 2025 to confirm what everyone had suspected. The CJNG and Los Chapitos had formed an alliance. They didn't say everything directly, but the message was clear. They were joining forces to fight their common enemies, El Mayito Flaco, El Mayo's son, and the US government. Now, this alliance changes everything. It gives Los Chapitos a second chance. Their leader, Ivan Guzman, was nearly finished. Many thought it was only a matter of time before he fell. But now, with CJNG behind him, he has all the support he needs. For CJNG, the deal is even better. They now have more influence in Sinaloa, one of Mexico's most crucial trafficking states. They also gain access to Sonora, which connects directly to the US. This gives them new smuggling routes for drugs, money, and weapons, all aimed at the American market. And for both cartels, this alliance sends a message. They're not going down without a fight. So while their civil war continues on one front, they've now opened a new front. And this time, they're pointing their weapons not just at each other, but at the United States. Now, do you think this alliance between the Sinaloa cartel and the CJNG will last? How do you see the power playing out in the coming month? And what do you think this alliance means for cartel violence in Mexico and in the United States? Feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth videos like this. Meanwhile, you should click on any of the cards on your screen right now to watch more of our videos.